What a bonk, squad. Okay, you've made it, alright? This is the big one. This is the one where we're not playing games no more, okay? No more games. Only real stuff from now on. Okay, so today we're talking about Bionicle 2008. And Bionicle 2008 I would describe as a year of ups and downs. It contains the absolute, inarguable, unequivocal best moment in all of Bionicle. If you disagree, you're just wrong. But that best moment, that absolute zenith of Bionicle, it's right at the top of the fin of the shark that Bionicle is jumping in 2008. This is easily, up till this point, the densest year of Bionicle lore. There are 3 books and 7 web serials, and it's just this confusing, overlapping, self-referential nightmare. But don't worry, I'm gonna walk you through it. I'm gonna make it real simple, relatively speaking, and then right at the end, I'm gonna absolutely destroy your mind. It's gonna be awesome. I've been looking forward to this for like 5 videos. Quick disclaimer though, I no longer have any of the sets that we're gonna be talking about, so all my commentary on designs and gimmicks is gonna be unfortunately secondhand, and I've just put up some favorites that are kind of relevant to what we're gonna be talking about, and you're just gonna have to live with that. But let's not waste any time here, okay? We got important stuff to talk about. Let's get right into it. Part 5, the Karda Nui era. Okay, so let's recap. What have we learned? 100,000 years ago, a group known as the Great Beings created the Matoran universe, a system of interconnected domes at the bottom of the ocean, each of which contains an island. To watch over the Matoran universe, the Great Beings then created the Great Spirit Mata Nui, its custodian god. Mata Nui reigned for the next 99,000 years until he was betrayed by Makuta, the evil master of shadows, who cast Mata Nui into eternal slumber in an event known as the Great Cataclysm. One of the things destroyed in the Cataclysm was Metra Nui, the capital city of the Matoran universe. So its residents, the Matoran, were forced to evacuate the universe for an island on the surface, which they then lived on for the next 1,000 years until the arrival of the Toa Mata. The Toa Mata upgraded to the Toa Nuva, and with the help of Takanuva, the 7th Toa and Toa of Light, were able to finally defeat Makuta and open the way back to the Matoran universe in general and Metra Nui in particular. However, upon returning to the Matoran universe, they discovered that Mata Nui, after 1,000 years in a coma, is now dying. So the Toa Nuva were dispatched to get the legendary Mask of Life, the only thing capable of saving him. They failed at that, but then another team of Toa, initially the Toa Inika, and then later known as the Toa Mari, were able to get the Mask of Life, but by the time they did, Mata Nui was already dead, but then one of them, Toa Matoro, sacrificed himself to use the Mask of Life to bring Mata Nui back from the dead. So now, with Mata Nui's life saved, the Toa Nuva are headed to the core of the universe to finally fulfill their destiny and reawaken him. Recap complete. Now, the core of the universe is a place called Karda Nui, and it is the source of all the energy that naturally fuels the Matoran universe. And in its natural state, Karda Nui is just this big empty sandbar full of energy storms, but like so much of the Matoran universe, it was damaged by the Great Cataclysm in 2 ways. First of all, Karda Nui is directly beneath the southern continent, and as we know, in the Great Cataclysm, a piece of the southern continent broke off, floated up to the surface of the ocean, and became the island of Voyanui, where the Mask of Life was hidden. This left a giant hole in the roof of the Matoran universe, and water from the ocean poured through it and down into Karda Nui, and it has now formed like a swamp all over the bottom of the area. I'm gonna elect not to get into the math of like the volume of water that would come through an island-sized hole in the bottom of the ocean over 1,000 years, and how big Karda Nui would need to be for that to just kind of form a swamp at the bottom, because that is in fact impossible, but we're just gonna move past that. The other thing that happened to Karda Nui in the Great Cataclysm is that many of the stalactites in its ceiling fell and impaled themselves in the ground, forming kind of like inverted mountain pillars. It's very Avatar vibes. And atop these pillars are the Sky Villages, where there is a settlement of Matoran. Specifically, these are of Matoran, or Matoran of Light. Now, the thing with Matoran of Light is that we have learned at this point that there can be Matoran of elements outside of the standard 6. So there are Matoran of things like sound and gravity and magnetism. But we were not previously aware that there could be Matoran of Light, and that is very much by design. See, the Matoran Matoran of Light were the first Matoran. They were made by the great beings themselves to help prep the universe for Mata Nui's initial awakening. But then after they completed that work, the Order of Mata Nui, aka the deep state shadow government of the Matoran universe, decided that the existence of the Matoran of Light should be kept a secret. This is because from basically day one, the Order has mistrusted the Brotherhood of Makuta, aka the League of Shadow Daddies, and they figured completely correctly that if the Brotherhood ever turned evil, their first order of business would probably be genocide of all the Matoran of Light. So the Order took some of the Matoran of Light and wiped their memories and relocated them to other lands, and the rest were hidden in caves beneath the southern continent on top of the stalactites that fell down into Karda Nui during the Great Cataclysm. So the Matoran of Light that were living in those caves are now living on the tops of these stone pillars. Anyway, unlike basically everybody else in the whole universe, the Matoran of Karda Nui have actually had a pretty sweet gig for the last 1,000 years. Nobody knows where Karda Nui is, so nobody bothers them. They live in these dope avatar villages. They fly around on jetpacks. It's a good deal. But then about a week before the main events we're going to be talking about in this video, the Brotherhood found out the location of Karda Nui. And since they know that the Toa Nuva are going to have to go there in order to reawaken Mata Nui, they send 7 of their best Makuta to secure the area and pacify the Matoran. Now that terminology that I just used might have thrown you a little bit because I just said 7 of their best Makuta. But Makuta is this guy, right? AKA this guy, and this guy. Well, no. Okay, so I've kind of alluded to this in the past, but the word Makuta is not the name of a guy. It's a species slash title in basically the exact same way that Toa is. So just as there is Toa Tahu and Toa Likon and Toa Matoro and Toa Gali, the members of the Brotherhood dispatched to Karda Nui are Makuta Antros, Makuta Chirox, Makuta Mutran, Makuta Vampra, Makuta Krika, Makuta Bitil, and Makuta Goras. This guy, the guy that we've been calling Makuta this entire time, his name is Pterodax. Makuta Pterodax. And I know for a fact that a lot of people hate that name. Objectively, it is kind of goofy. Personally, I don't hate it. Really, the issue is that the characterization of this guy has changed over the years. When he was this, the evil god of darkness and brother of Mata Nui, that's the Makuta. When he's this, the megalomaniacal Emperor Palpatine conqueror of the universe, that's Pterodax. So just so we're on the same page here, if I say Pterodax, I am referring to this guy, the guy that we've been calling Makuta because his name is actually Pterodax. And what's even more fucked up than that is that the plural of the word Makuta is Makuta. This is a Makuta. This is 3 Makuta. I'm going to be saying Makutas as the plural of Makuta, which is not correct, but I have to do it because if I don't do that, I'm going to end up saying shit like Makuta sent 2 groups of 3 Makuta and then 1 other Makuta to Karda Nui. It's not going to work. So the Makuta squad shows up in Karda Nui and they're like, whoa, oh, okay, whoa, hey, Matoran being happy, enjoying their lives? Nah, I'm not having it. Nuh-uh. And they split up into 3 teams. Team A goes down to secure the swamp, Team B goes to terrorize the Matoran, and Team C, which is literally just one guy, gets to just post up in a cave and do a bunch of science. That guy is Makuta Mutran, and Mutran is very, like, Dr. Frankenstein coded. If you recall from the last video, I mentioned that the Brotherhood of Makuta were originally meant to be scientists responsible for creating Rahi instead of warriors or conquerors or whatever you want to call what they're doing now. And Mutran's basically the only Makuta that's still 100% on that grind, but that doesn't mean he's not evil. He's very evil. And his job here in Karda Nui is to create shadow leeches, which are these little critters where if they get on you, they suck all the light out of you, which makes you evil. And they are what Team Harass the Villagers are using to harass the villagers. So the Makutas come out of nowhere and attack and start dropping shadow leeches on the Matoran and turning them into Shadow Matoran, and we get like a first-person POV of one of the Matoran as he becomes a Shadow Matoran. And he starts like questioning the 3 virtues in his head. He's like, a duty to what? Endless back-breaking labor to achieve a destiny of exhaustion and more mind-numbing toil. And I'm like, yo, yo, maybe I have myself been gotten by a shadow leech and the light has been sucked from me by society, but like, my man kind of making valid points, I don't know. And the Makutas basically immediately shadow leech like almost everybody. The only real win that the Matoran get during any of this is that these events cross over with the events of the Mari Nui era from last time. So when Matoro, the Toa Mari of Ice, the bearer of the Mask of Life, when he fell down into the core of the universe and exploded in order to bring the Great Spirit back to life, well, that was this same core of the universe. So that big flash of light permanently blinded the three Makutas that are attacking the villages. So that's nice, but they then immediately found out that if they just strap a Shadow Matoran to their back, they can share senses with the Shadow Matoran, and the Shadow Matoran can still see. So like it was a win, but it wasn't really a win. It was not that much of a win. So things kept sucking and the Matoran kept losing, and then one day, in the middle of an attack by the Makuta squad, the Toa Nuva are suddenly teleported into Karda Nui, right in the middle of the sky, right in the middle of this battle. Now, if you recall from last time, the Toa Nuva came here direct from Artaka, aka Matoran Heaven, where they were talking to Artaka, aka the ruler of Matoran Heaven, which is not the same thing as God, or the Mega Gods, or the Servants of God, although it did used to be the same thing as the Servants of God, but then there was like a corporate reorg. It doesn't matter. And right before they came here, Artaka gave them this stuff called the Adaptive Armor, which is exactly what it sounds like. So when they get teleported into the middle of the sky, they all immediately gain the ability to fly, and also new designs that mean you have to go out and buy these guys for a third time. So the Toa teleport in, and the Makuta squad is like, hi, we knew you guys would be coming. We weren't exactly expecting you to just teleport into the sky while we're trying to fight. So they back off, and the Toa link up with the local Matoran. The Matoran brief the Toa on the situation in Karda Nui, and basically they find out that they have three objectives. 1, protect the Matoran from the Makuta squad. 2, retrieve the Mask of Life, because when Matoro exploded in the sky above Karda Nui, the Mask of Life fell down into the swamp below. And like, they don't need it to revive the Great Spirit anymore, but it is still the most powerful artifact in the universe, so they're like, okay, you know what, maybe we should go and get it. And 3, acquire 6 keystones that are scattered throughout Karda Nui that will, in an as yet unclear manner, be necessary for the reawakening of Mata Nui, because you have to have a MacGuffin hunt involved in the story, because if you didn't, how would the Toa do a bunch of stuff? You gotta have the Toa doing a bunch of stuff. And the local Matoran already have a keystone, so the Toa have 1 of the 6 keystones that they need. So the Toa decide that the best way to handle this is for them to split up. Lewa, Pohatu, and Kopaka are gonna stay up in the villages and have badass aerial dog fights with the Makuta squad, while Galio, Nua, and Tahu go down and dredge the Mask of Life out of the swamp. No points for guessing which part is cooler. So let's start with the Sky Squad, aka the Fantoka. First, the Fantoka Makutas. Now, as cool as it is to see members of the Brotherhood other than Pterodax, the Karda Nui Makuta squad is, with one exception, not very interesting. They're sort of just evil guys. They don't get a lot of development. So the Fantoka Makutas are Mutran, who we already talked about, and who isn't really officially a Fantoka. He's like kind of a different thing, but like whatever, he's up here. Antraz, who is the squad leader. Vampra, who is this creepy, silent weirdo. And Chirox, who is also primarily a scientist, but isn't as good at it as Mutran and gets constantly dunked on for it. Design-wise, I quite like the Fantoka Makuta. They are very clearly Bat-influenced, and it's like, yeah, this is what rank-and-file members of the Brotherhood would look like. The Fantoka Makutas introduce us to our first new gimmick alert of 2008, of which there will be several Tridax pods. Now, once again, since I don't have the sets, I am not able to directly comment on the gimmicks of this era, but what I can tell you is that Tridax pods appear to be a very lame gimmick. Tridax pods are the delivery method for shadow leeches. They're just kind of like a ball that's dropped like a bomb and then cracks open and the leeches are in there. It just doesn't seem like a very fun thing to use. And also, these shadow leeches, first of all, are way too cute for how sinister of a thing they are, and secondly, are easily the biggest choking hazard that Bionicle has ever introduced. Do not tell me that these are not fruit snacks, because they obviously are. The Fantoka also introduce us to our second new gimmick alert of 2008, combining. I don't really know if this counts as like a full gimmick, but there are Matoran sets from this era, Shadow Matoran for the Makutas and Light Matoran for the Toa, that can clip onto their backs, as prominently displayed in the commercial for the Fantoka. And this commercial, dude, this is the coolest commercial Bionicle Bionicle has ever had, and that is a high bar, okay?
Thanks, Anika!
It so perfectly sells the fantasy of these high-flying aerial battles between Toa and Makuta. The song in this commercial, Gravity Hurts by Cryoshell, bro.
Learn to fly, reach the sky, legend will carry you thousands of miles.
This was my favorite song when I was 12 years old, and yes, I do recognize that that's kind of pathetic, but what do you want from me, man? I was a weird kid, okay? I wouldn't be making 7 hours of Bionicle content if when I was 12 my favorite song wasn't Gravity Hurts, okay? Now, as for the Fantoka Toa, I think design-wise they are pretty good. They're kind of radical reinterpretations of the Toa Nuva designs, but I think they all still capture the original vibe, especially Kopaka. This is Kopaka with wings. Ohatu's a little weird because he's now orange, which is kind of jarring, but I never really liked brown as a Bionicle color. I always thought that was kind of lame, so I'm on board with him being orange. He also has helicopter blades instead of wings, and that's lame. I wish he had wings, but like he's the Toa of stones, so like, My only other real gripe with the Fantoka Toa is summed up by this image right here. This is how Leiwa holds his swords, and there is an established way that Bionicles are supposed to hold weapons, and it's not this. This is incorrect. The Fantoka Toa also introduce us to our third new gimmick alert of 2008, Mydax Sky Blasters. Now, I mean, as a gimmick, I don't know. It seems fun. It seems cool. Sure, whatever. We are now at a point where the gimmicks, we're not even trying to justify them within the plot. It's literally just like, yeah, the Toa showed up and the adaptive armor gave them these launchers that shoot a ball of light. Now, as for the name, Leiwa always wanted a weapon called a Sky Blaster, and nobody else cared enough to argue with him. Now, character-wise, these are still the Toa Nuva. You maybe don't remember the Toa Nuva that well. Basically, just think of an element and the stereotype you would associate with it. That's them. But what's cool is that this is the Toa Nuva at the end of their character arc. Character arc. It's very point A, point B. We haven't really seen their development. But nonetheless, all the Toa Nuva have mellowed out a lot. The dumb ones are less dumb. The asshole ones are less asshole. Tahu is like a good leader who takes people's feelings into account. So, you know, it's just cool. We haven't gotten to hang out with these guys for a while, and it's nice that they've kind of grown up with the audience, even if it was mostly off screen. So anyway, the Fantoka Toa set about protecting the Matoran villages from the Makutas, and it's going okay, but like they can't figure out where the shadow leeches are coming from, and as long as they can't figure that out, the attacks are just gonna keep happening. So the Toa come up with this plan where they capture this one shadow Matoran, and they trick him into leading them to the location of the cave where Mutran is making the shadow leeches. And simultaneously, two other things are happening. First of all, the Fantoka Makuta dispatch Vikin, Mutran's weird little goblin assistant, to go and get help from Icarax. Now, Icarax is another Makuta. He has been kind of like leading the Brotherhood, sort of, while Pterodax has been dead. You know how Pterodax is dead, and he didn't initially want to come to Karda Nui because he's like a warrior, conqueror, murder guy type Makuta, but now it's like, okay, maybe he can kill some Toa, so he's on his way. Secondly, down in the swamp below is the Mask of Life, and it recognizes that it is once again in danger and in need of a guardian. The thing is, basically every single guardian that the Mask of Life has ever created has completely failed it. But there is one person who did do right by the Mask of Life, and that of course was Matoran. See, the thing about the Mask of Life is it is, like, alive, but it isn't really sentient in the way that people are. It doesn't think like a person. So when it was fused with Matoran, that was its first time really, like, feeling feelings. And it was pretty hype on that. It really respects Matoran. So it's like, you know what? Maybe now I should try thinking like him and being like him. So it constructs itself a body from the plant matter of the swamp and becomes Toa Ignica, the Toa of Life, who is maybe the single most broken character in Bionicle, because the second he comes into being, he flies up to go join the Fantoka Toa on their mission right as they're about to pull up on the Shadow Leech production facility, and the Makutas send this giant flying Rahi at them, and Ignica shows up and makes it live through its entire life in like 3 seconds and then just die and fall into the swamp. And me personally, I would not have been chill about that. The Toa are fine. They're like, wow, wow, that was kind of crazy, but I guess you're on our side. I would not have been that chill about it. Because he also doesn't talk. He's new to being a person, and he doesn't really, like, get it yet. He's terrifying. But he basically joins the team, and the Toa blast into the Makuta lair and start fighting them, and they lose, but then they win, but then they lose again, and the Makutas are about to put shadow leeches on them. Leiwa is about to get brainwashed for the third time. But then Pohatu pulls off some actual, like, Barry Allen level bullshit with his mask of speed, phases all the Toa through their chains, and then they zoom around the lair, they smash all the shadow leech vats, they smash all the Makuta, they leap out, fly away on their jetpacks. Pohatu turns around in midair, tries to bring down the whole base with his stone powers, but it's like a living stone, so it doesn't count. So Ignika steps up, and he brings it down with his life powers, and it like plummets and falls into the swamp. So the Toa fly away. At this point, Icarax shows up, and Antros is like, oh good, Icarax, you're here, I have work for you. And Icarax hits him with the utterly iconic, I am not currently seeking employment, Antros. And Antros is like, oh, well then I guess I just won't tell you about how there is a Toa of life, and I'm giving you the first shot at killing him. And Icarax is like, okay, well dude, lead with that next time, okay? So all of the Fantoka Makuta launch this massive assault against the last Matoran village and completely destroy it, and then they pull open like the bunker in the rock, and the Matoran just aren't there because the Toa knew that they were gonna do this, and they evacuated all the Matoran, and then they fly in and ambush the Makutas and get in another sick aerial dogfight. The best part of this fight is when Icarax does in fact try and 1v1 Ignika, and Ignika does the most brutal shit in all of Bionicle. Remember how I said last time that Makutas have evolved to a point where they're not biomechanical anymore, they're just energy in a metal shell? So Ignika just kind of like holds out his hand and devolves Icarax back into having organs, except that modern Makuta armor is not designed to have organs in it, so he basically does the equivalent of like growing a body for Icarax inside of an Iron Maiden, which fucks him up. And Mutran sees this happening, and Icarax is like their best warrior, so he's like, okay, this isn't going well. So he lets out this massive shadow blast that affords all of the Makutas a chance to escape down into the swamp, pursued by the Toa, and that's the end of the Fantoka segment. But before we get into the events down in the swamp, there are two web serials that we're gonna have to go over. Now, I am going to choose to be unbelievably merciful to you in this era and not give you a full breakdown of all fucking 7 web serials. I'm just gonna hit you with like things that I think are cool or funny that happen in the web serials. Web serial 1 is called The Mutran Chronicles, and it's literally just flashbacks and Brotherhood of Makuta backstory, and I'm gonna completely skip it. You see how nice I am? You see what a cool guy I'm being to you? I'm so cool. Subscribe to the channel. Anyway, web serial 2 is called Federation of Fear, and Federation of Fear is probably my favorite web serial. First of all, it doesn't do any of that like crossing over timelines between chapters thing, which all the other web serials do, and I hate that. And secondly, it's really funny. So the premise of Federation of Fear is literally just Bionicle Suicide Squad. Basically what happens is the Order of Mata Nui has realized that they are at the 11th hour. Mata Nui is really close to being reawakened, so this is the Brotherhood of Makuta's last chance to conquer the universe, and they're gonna give it their all. So the Order of Mata Nui finally has to step out of the shadows and do whatever is necessary to preserve the universe until Mata Nui gets reawakened. And to that end, they assemble a group of former Bionicle villains to go on an extremely dangerous mission. Now, the Federation of Fear, and yes, that's actually what they're called, it's so stupid, consists of the following members: Karapar and Takadox of the Baraki, Vizon, half Paraka and former Guardian of the Mask of Life, Rudaka, former Viceroy of the Visorak and Bionicle with tits, Spiria, a disgraced Makuta who we've never met before, Lariska, a Dark Hunter who we have met before, but I'm not even gonna get into what she is, all led by Brutaka, former member of the Order of Mata Nui and Guardian of the Mask of Life, later disgraced and sent to the pit, and now redeemed and reinstated as like a provisional member of the order. And their mission is to track down Makuta Miserix, the original leader of the Brotherhood of Makuta, before Pterodax launched a coup against him and started off the whole like the Brotherhood is evil now thing. 3 things of note happened during Federation of Fear. One is just a lot of really funny, like stupid one-liners. My favorite of which is that there's this part where Rudaka is talking to Spiria, and she's doing her normal Rudaka thing and trying to seduce him, and Spiria's not having it, and he's like, I would sooner offer my neck to a dull axe blade than trust you, female. Like, he calls her female as almost like a derogatory. Clearly what they're going for is it's like, I'm not gonna trust you, woman. Like, that's a thing that somebody would say, but you can't use the word woman in Bionicle because there aren't women, there's only male and female, except actually there is a part in one of the later web serials where Bionicle head writer and Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young Greg Farshtey straight up just fucked up and wrote the word woman and like forgot and just left it in. So that's like, I don't know what the implications of that are, but the word woman isn't supposed to exist. So instead Spiria just calls her female like he's an incel, and I think that's really funny. I don't know. Second thing that happens is that the Federation is supposed to pick up a shipment of weapons for them to use on their mission from Botar. Remember Botar? That teleporting dickhead who's responsible for taking prisoners to the pit for the Order of Mata Nui. So they show up to the beach where they're supposed to rendezvous with Botar, and Botar is just dead. His body is just there. He got killed off screen by Icarax. And like, this is really just the final nail in the coffin for Botar as a character, because like, okay, Botar, he was talking all that good shit for like 80,000 years, and then he got in one fight in his entire career, and he got off-screened. R.I.P. Botar, you were a dick and then you died. Third thing that happens is that the Federation obviously can't get the weapons from Botar because he's dead. The weapons just got shipped to like this other random island, and that island happens to be the prison of Trencrom. And like, when I tell you what Trencrom is, you're not gonna believe me. Like, you're gonna think I'm just making shit up at this point. Trencrom, he's like a Cthulhu. He's like an elder god of the Matoran universe. He's described as this like writhing mass of eyes and tentacles that induces madness to look upon, and he was created by the great beings in Karda Nui like way in prehistory to generally run the Matoran universe before Mata Nui was ready to take over, and then once Mata Nui was ready to take over, they ripped him out, bound him to an island in the ass end of the universe, and just left him there for 100,000 years. Honestly, justice for Trencrom. Trencrom did nothing wrong. And Trencrom grabs all the members of the Federation and he's like, all right, I'm gonna probe your minds and find out what's been happening in the universe in the last 100,000 years. And he does it and he's like, oh my god, dude. Oh, wow. All right, so listen, I was gonna like inflict unspeakable horrors upon you, but actually, I think the worst thing I could do is just let you go back into this universe. And Brutaka tries to be like, wait, but Trencrom, don't you want to save this universe that you once ruled? And Trencrom is like, no, I literally could not begin to care. Fuck this whole Earth. And then he just lets them go. And that's basically all the really fun stuff that happens in Federation of Fear. They do eventually find Miserix, and then all the remaining members fly away on Miserix's back to go fight the Brotherhood, and that's the end of the first batch of web serials. So now let's get into the next section, the adventures of the Swamp Squad, aka the Mystica. So if you recall, while Kopaka, Lewa, and Pohatu are having high-flying badass dogfights with the Makuta squad, Gali, Tahu, and Onua have to go and dig the Mask of Life out of the mud. Except we now know that the second the Mask of Life attained sentience, it was like, I'm not hanging out down in this swamp, built itself a body, and flew up to go have sick dogfights with the Makuta squad. Even the Mask of Life doesn't want to be part of this stupid fucking get the Mask of Life plotline anymore. Anyway, we call this group of Swamp Toa, and also this group of Swamp Makutas that we're about to be introduced to, the Mystica. I am not really a fan of the Mystica Toa designs, and it's not because they're weird and ugly, although they are. It's because unlike the Fantoka Toa, I really don't feel like the Mystica Toa capture the spirit of the Toa they're supposed to be. Tahu probably does best in this category, like, yeah, this kind of looks like Tahu, but Gali looks nothing like Gali. Gali is all like hunchbacked and weaponized and prickly, doesn't look right, doesn't look like Gali. Golly don't like it. And then Onua is like sleek and skinny and streamlined, and it's like, dude, that's not what Onua looks like. Onua is supposed to be, I leaned the wrong direction. Onua is supposed to be like chunky and weird and hunched. I feel like if you just switched the color schemes of Golly and Onua, they would look way more like the people they're supposed to be. And then also down in the swamp are 3 Mystica Makutas, and design-wise, they fare a lot better, I think. Bitil is probably the worst one. He's just kind of strange, and he's also, like, not a character. Gorest is better. I like her design, and character-wise, she's like an absolute zealot to Pterodax and his cause. And she's also the only female Makuta we ever meet, which is pretty cool, honestly. Bionicle doesn't have a lot of female villains. So it's nice that we get a female Makuta, and it's nice that she's this weird, fucked up bug instead of being, you know, like the other female Bionicle villain. And then there's Krakua, and Krakua is the best Makuta introduced in this era by a mile. Visually, he's this weird, creepy, ghostly mantis kind of creature. And then character-wise, Krakua is really interesting because he's kind of the only Makuta that has, like, a soul. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is still a Makuta and he is still super evil, but, like, he didn't really want to be part of Pterodax's coup. He didn't really want to be part of this whole anti-Mata Nui thing, but, like, he is. The Brotherhood has chosen its fate, and at this point, being evil is just kind of the only thing there is for him. It's honestly a really cool perspective for a villain to have. I wish we'd gotten more of Krakua. There should be a Krakua web serial, but no, we can only have terrible web serials and Federation of Fear. And then the last thing of note about the Mystica is that they introduce us to our 4th new gimmick alert for 2008, Ninra Ghost Blasters. And I'm not even gonna explain what these are, or what they do, or how they work. I'm just gonna say those words again so that you hear them. Ninra Ghost Blasters. Now, in terms of, like, what happens during the Mystica section, very little. The Toa are mostly just, like, running around, getting in fights with the Makutas, but they're not sick aerial fights anymore. They're just, like, swamp fights, and honestly, why was there a swamp section at all? Why did half of the Toa have to go and hang out in the swamp, and why did we get a whole book about that? Anyway, 2 main things actually do happen. One is that the Toa get the other 3 keystones that the Fantoka Toa don't already have. One they steal from the Makutas, one Golly just kind of like finds in a tree, and the last one they get from this Matoran that they run into down in the swamp, and he leads them to this clearing where there's a bunch of Matoran of Light who are in the process of transforming into BOHROK, and it's revealed that all BOHROK are actually Matoran of Light, and the Toa are like, whoa, man, like, that's pretty messed up. You guys are losing your sentience and just being transformed into machines. And this Matoran is like, no, it's not even like that. We are making a sacrifice, but as BOHROK, we serve the will of the Great Spirit. We are going from being a thing that you look after and protect to truly your brothers in arms. And it's like, dude, how does Farshtey keep making the BOHROK cooler every time they show up? And then the other thing that actually happens during the Mystica section is that the Toa find this thing called the Codrex. It's this enormous metal sphere that has a force field around it, which can only be opened with the 6 keystones, and within it lies the means of finally reawakening Mata Nui. So the Makutas are guarding the Codrex, and the Toa attack them, and they start fighting, and, like, the Makutas are trying, but they're not trying that hard. They're, like, not trying to kill them. They gave up their piece of the keystone really easily. And at one point, Tahu is dueling with Krakua, and Krika's like, yeah, actually, in a minute, we're gonna destroy the Codrex, and you won't even be able to reawaken Mata Nui. And Tahu's like, I think you're lying, dude. You were here for a week before we showed up. You had a lot of time to destroy the Codrex. You didn't do it. I think there's something in there that you want, and I think you want us to get it for you. But before we can get any more detail on that, the 5 Makutas that were up in the sky fly down into the swamp to join the fight, followed immediately by the 4 Toa that were up in the sky. So everybody reunites and gets ready for the final battle.
Better make it a Lightspeed rescue.
So while all of this is happening, back on Metra Nui, Takanuva, the Toa of Light, is going about his business, taking a walk through the city and being the most wasted character in Bionicle, when he is suddenly attacked by a Shadow Leech, and the Shadow Leech starts sucking the light out of him, but he is rescued before it can kill him or turn him fully evil. And the person that rescued Takanuva is the leader of of the Order of Mata Nui, Toa Helrix. Now, Helrix is a Toa of water, and she was the first Toa to ever be created. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Noah. You said last time that Lesovic was the first Toa ever. Or you're thinking, who the fuck is Lesovic? But regardless, you're wrong, because I didn't even say that. What I said was that Lesovic was the leader of the first Toa team. But before they were in teams, Toa worked solo, which doesn't really make any sense, because they're only effective as teams. And the first solo Toa was Helrix, okay? And when you hear that the leader of the Order of Mata Nui is a Toa, that immediately feels wrong, because the whole point of the Order is that they are not Toa. They're not public figures, they're not heroes, so like, how is a Toa their leader? That doesn't make any sense. But then you find out that actually it does make sense, because Helrix is an actual crazy person, and she has a mission for Takanuva. She shares with him a bunch of backstory and lore about the Toa Mata, but the big revelation is that when Mata Nui is reawakened, it's going to create this massive energy storm in Karda Nui, which will completely vaporize everything there, including all the Toa and all the Matoran. So somebody has to go there and warn the Toa that this is going to happen, and that's Takanuva's job. Now, Takanuva needs to get to Karda Nui right away, so he is going to get there by way of Brutaka's mask. If you recall 2 episodes ago when I introduced Brutaka, I said he has a mask that creates teleportational gateways, and I was like, remember that because it's going to be important later. Well, I bet you didn't, but it's about to be important now. So Brutaka is going to open up a gateway that Takanuva can go through that'll take him right to Karda Nui. Unfortunately, Brutaka was down in the pit for a while, and pit mutagen degrades Kanohi masks and their powers. So this portal that he makes is like very visibly whack and bad, and Takanuva's like, well, I don't want to go through that. And Helrix is like, oh, well, that actually works out perfectly because I didn't ask for your fucking opinion, bro. So Takanuva goes through the portal, and sure enough, it doesn't take him where he wants to go. But the thing is, and I need you to believe me that this is actually what happens, it takes him into the multiverse. So Takanuva goes dimension hopping for a little bit, and the 2 web serials of this section are both focused on different dimensions that he ends up in. First one is the Kingdom. The Kingdom's pretty uneventful. The second universe that Takanuva ends up in is Dark Mirror, and Dark Mirror is fucking crazy, bro. So remember last time we talked about this web serial called The Many Deaths of Toa Tuyet, which was about this Toa back on Metro Nui named Tuyet, who had this thing called the Nui Stone that made her like way stronger than a normal Toa, and she got in a fight with Toa Lekon where Lekon blew it up, and then she got taken to jail and then died. Well, in Dark Mirror, Lekon lost that fight and he died, and then Toa Tuyet used the power of the Nui Stone to take over the entire universe and install a fascist Toa empire. And Takanuva ends up linking up with the Resistance there, and 2 main things of note happen in this web serial. One is that the Resistance gives Takanuva the task of retrieving the Mask of Time, and you know, we love that the Mask of Time is back. We love that they keep bringing this up, and we haven't just left this behind in 2003, but okay, so here's the thing. Takanuva goes to intercept this caravan that's carrying the Mask of Time, and then he succeeds, he gets it. But then, like, that's it. Like, after that, the Mask of Time is gone. And I don't mean like they lose it, or it's destroyed, or like they try and use it and it doesn't work. I mean like it's just not in the story anymore. Imagine you're watching like Avengers Endgame, right? You know how the whole second act of that movie is about them going into the past to get the Infinity Stones? Imagine that happens, and then like that's the last we ever hear about the Infinity Stones. They don't use them, and they also don't even acknowledge that they did that. That's what happens with the Mask of Time. And like, I'm just gonna directly address Greg Farshtey for a second here, okay? Farshtey, what happened? Like, are you okay? The other thing of note that happens in Dark Mirror is that the Resistance launches an attack against Toa Tuyet's palace, and this fight is nuts. Named characters, Toa that we know, are dying left and right. Takanuva watches an alternate version of himself get killed right in front of him. He takes out this whole squad of Toa and, like, maybe kills them. Like, we don't even know. And then Takanuva confronts Tuyet right as the whole population of the whole universe are showing up to join the fight, and 2 yet has Brutaka's mask, and she's like, yeah, this universe is kind of like screwed, whatever, but now that I know you exist, I'm just gonna go and conquer another universe. So she opens up a portal, but Takanuva like runs past, grabs the mask off her face, and jumps through it, and they're having like a tug of war over it while she's pulled halfway through the portal, but the mask isn't on her face anymore, so its power deactivates, and the portal closes and fucking cuts her in half. And Takanuva floats off into the multiverse, and he's like, well, I mean, I hope that dimension's okay. Not my problem anymore. And that's the end of Dark Mirror. Like, bro, like what? And after that, Takanuva does finally arrive in our universe in Karda Nui to join in the final battle. So now it's actually for real time for the final battle. Okay, so here's the thing, you guys. This is the part where I give up. Not on Bionicle, not on the videos, not on me understanding the story, just on telling you even the majority of what happens. So in this section of the story, there is 1 book and 3 web serials: Brothers in Arms, Dwellers in Darkness, and Destiny War. And these web serials are not okay. Like, you remember last time when I was like, welcome to web serial hell, am I right, you guys? No, I was not right, you guys. That was a meme. I'm not even gonna make an attempt at outlining the individual storylines of the 3 different web serials because it's impossible. And even if it weren't impossible, it wouldn't be worth it. I'm just gonna tell you about some things that happen. Toa Helrix gives the Toa Haga a fishbowl containing Zaktan, the green Paraka.
Yo, Paraka!
He has secret information about the plans of the Brotherhood of Makuta because he read it on the wall of a basement one time, and he's going to lead them to a secret location where they might be able to disrupt those plans. And if you're sitting there like, wait, who are the Toa Haga? Who are those guys? Exactly. Who are the Toa Haga? I told you about the Toa Haga. I told you about them like 3 videos ago. They were the Toa that used to be Makuta's bodyguards, but then they got mutated into Rahaga after they betrayed him. But you don't remember them because they don't matter. Well, they get a whole web serial. Dwellers in Darkness is like mostly about the Toa Haga. And who the hell are the Toa Haga? The Toa Mari get tricked by the Order of Mata Nui into committing Viscerak genocide by luring them all into an active volcano, but this is in fact itself a ploy to get them off of Metro Nui so that the Order can turn Metro Nui into a military base and leak to the Brotherhood that they're making a virus that eats Makuta armor there in order to lure the Brotherhood into focusing the fight there. Vizon gets sent to the base of the Brotherhood of Makuta in order to confuse them and piss them off, where he finds out that there's this one Makuta who's been using a copy of Brutaka's mask to harvest Takanuvas from alternate dimensions and use shadow leeches to turn them into an army of evil shadow Takanuvas. And if you think that that is a thing that's gonna end up mattering in any way, you're wrong. Vizon then uses the mask to escape the base of the Brotherhood and teleports to this cave where Helrix and Kitongu, for some reason, were fighting the energized protodermis entity. He accidentally teleports them out and teleports himself in right as the energized protodermis entity was sending a wave of energized protodermis at them. It misses them, but it hits him, fusing him with the portal mask to turn him into like a portal guy. He starts opening up random portals all over the universe. One of them teleports these 2 Matoran who have been beefing for like 50,000 years to an alternate dimension where they talk to alternate versions of the fucking great beings who keep one of them there for study because he's a shadow Matoran and send the other one back with an alternate version of Makuta Pterodax who was a good guy. And if you think that that is a thing that's gonna end up mattering, no, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. Makuta Miserix gets turned into a painting, except he doesn't actually get turned into a painting. Don't be stupid. He just gets put in an illusion that makes him and everybody else think that he got turned into a painting, obviously. Oh, this one is my personal favorite. Taraga Vakama is like, oh, maybe the Mask of Time might be able to help in this conflict. So he goes to get the Mask of Time, but it's in the middle of being stolen by BOHROK, a character that you do not remember, whose only purpose in life is to steal the Mask of Time. He steals the Mask of Time and he leaves, and that's the last we ever hear of him or of it. This is the literal final battle of Bionicle. It's the last chance for the Mask of Time to do anything, and it just gets stolen and taken out of the story. It's the second most powerful mask in the universe, and it literally never did anything. So, like, are you convinced? Do you get it? Do you understand the level of not okay that we're operating at? Because it's very high. And by the way, none of what I just said is in linear order all in one web serial. I cobbled all of those plot points together from multiple web serials, different chapters. It's more confusing than I just made it. But alright, let's get back to Karda Nui. So in Karda Nui, the Toa are fighting the Makutas over the Codrex, and most of this section is just them fighting. But as they do this, we start hearing more and more about this thing called the Plan. That's plan with a capital P. The Plan is Makuta Pterodax's plan for taking over the universe, and we don't get a ton of detail on what the plan involves, but all the detail that we do get is very confusing. The plan has been in motion for tens of thousands of years, ever since Pterodax's coup. The Great Cataclysm, Mata Nui being plunged into slumber, that was like one of the main goals of the plan. But now, Mata Nui's reawakening doesn't really seem like it's going to negatively affect the plan at all. As a matter of fact, it now seems like Mata Nui's reawakening is critical to the success of the plan, which is why the Makutas aren't really trying that hard to stop it. They're not here to stop it. They're here to make it look like they're trying to stop it and then kill the Toa after they do it. And furthermore, not all of the Makutas are equally on board with the plan. Icarax isn't into the plan at all. He wants to conquer the universe through murder, and apparently the plan is going to preclude that in some way. And Krakua isn't into it either, just because he thinks that what the plan is going to do isn't gonna be good for the universe. There's even a part where he pulls Gali aside in the middle of the fighting, and he's like, listen, I know that you're a Toa, and I'm like a scary mantis Makuta man, so you're not gonna trust anything that I say. But you guys need to abort this mission. Do not go into the Codrex. Do not reawaken Mata Nui. It's going to be worse for everybody if you do. But before he can elaborate on that, Takanuva finally shows up in Karda Nui, joins the fight, and helps push the Makutas back, and he links up with the Toa, and the Toa are like, you look different, and he's like, we're not even gonna get into that right now. Listen, when Mata Nui gets reawakened, there's gonna be a massive energy storm in here. It's gonna kill everybody, so I'm gonna fly up to the sky villages and go and evacuate all the Matoran while you guys get into the Codrex and get this thing started. So he flies off, and the Toa Nuva and Ignika finally fight their way into the Codrex. And inside, they find a bunch of weird machinery and 3 vehicles. The Axelara T9, Jetrax T6, and Rocco T3. And these vehicles, man, like, they're cool, but they are the single most transparent, this is a toy and not a lore thing in Bionicle. Like, we find out who made them and put them there, but not why, or to what end, or what they could possibly be intended for. And outside the Codrex, the Makutas now stop attacking because everything is going according to plan, but then Icarax approaches Krakua and he's like, listen, Krakua, you and I both know that we don't want this plan to go off. This plan is fucking stupid, dude. If you can disrupt this force field around the Codrex, I'll destroy it, and then without the Codrex, Mata Nui won't be able to be reawakened and the whole plan is off. So he starts attacking the Codrex, and inside the Toa are like, oh god, Icarax is trying to destroy the Codrex, we gotta go out there and stop him. So the Fantoka Toa get onto the vehicles and blast out of there to go have sick vehicle fights with the Makutas, while the Mystica Toa and Ignika stay inside and try and figure out what the hell they're even supposed to be doing. Once again, the Mystica Toa really get the short end of the stick. So the Fantoka Toa rejoin the fight against the Makutas, now on these vehicles. Meanwhile, the Makutas also turn on each other. They try and stop Icarax from destroying the Codrex, and he tries to, like, teleport, and they disrupt his teleport, which scatters his atoms all across the whole universe, so he's dead. Krakua overhears the Toa talking about this energy storm that's gonna kill everybody, and he's like, oh damn, this is totally part of the plan too. Pterodax sent all of his best guys here to Karda Nui, and we're all gonna die in this energy storm, leaving him to rule the universe unopposed. And he tries to warn the other Makutas about this, and they're like, you're a traitor, you're trying to disrupt the plan, fuck you, and they kill him too. Meanwhile, Takanuva flies off to go evacuate all the Matoran from Karda Nui, but he also needs to evacuate the Shadow Matoran, but they're not gonna cooperate because they're evil. But luckily, he finds a way to unshadowfy them. And the method he finds to do this has to be one of the single stupidest things in all of Bionicle. So there's this type of Rahi that Mutran created called a Klakk, which is a very goofy name and is acknowledged in universe to be a very goofy name. There's a line where they're like, what everybody could agree on was Klakk was a weird name. I think Lego must have been like holding Greg Farshtey at gunpoint, and they were like, if you don't call this thing a Klakk right now, it's over. And I guess, like, unbeknownst to Mutran, the Klakk has this sonic scream attack where if it hits you, it removes the barrier in your mind that a shadow leech creates that stops light from re-entering your soul. If this snake yells at you, you stop being evil. Like, that's gotta be a writing decision where Farshtey was like, oh, damn, I got 2 chapters to wrap up this Shadow Matoran thing. all right, you know what? I didn't want to have to do this, but I guess I gotta break out the yelling snake. So Takanuva goes around with the Klakk and unshadows all the Matoran, and he himself gets unshadowed, and they all escape. Meanwhile, inside the Codrex, the Mysticatoa are trying to rev up the machines in there that will reawaken Mata Nui. And it's like working, but it's really slow, and they're like, okay, our friends are fighting for their lives out there. We really don't have this kind of time. If only we had some way of delivering like one massive burst of energy. And then they all kind of like awkwardly look over at Toa Nuva, and they're like, okay, I don't know how you're gonna take this, but we need you to sacrifice your physical form and attempts at being a sentient being and like explode in order to reawaken Mata Nui. And Nuva thinks about it for a second, and he's like, I will do what must be done. Then I will be like Motoro. I will be a hero. And it's like, Farshtey, you can't be putting these heartbreaking lines in the middle of this stupid action scene. So Nuva sacrifices himself, and the Mask of Life starts like tweaking and generating all this energy. And the Toa are like, okay, we gotta get out of here right now. And they bail out of the Codrex. They get on the vehicles. They start flying away as the energy storm starts. And the Makutas that are still alive are like, oh, hey, energy storm, wonder what's up with that. And then it starts vaporizing them, and they're like, oh, fuck. Oh, we've been played big time. And they all start trying to escape, but like they're not fast enough. These vehicles are fast as hell. And Pohatu like looks back at them as they're being vaporized, and he's like, Tahu, should we like go back? Should we try and help them? We're Toa. We're not supposed to let people die on our watch. And Tahu's like, they lit this inferno. Let them burn in it, which is badass. So all the Makutas die, and the Toa are racing away toward the edge of Karda Nui. And meanwhile, on Metro Nui, this is actually a thing that happened in the web serials, but it's so goddamn cool that I wanted to tell you about it now in the climax. Metro Nui is like the final theater of this massive war between the Brotherhood and the Order of Mata Nui. And it's under attack by this massive army of Rakshi, and the Order is fighting, and the Toa Mari are fighting, but like it's not enough. So the Toa Mari are like, wait, I have an idea. And they go to this Toa of Sound named Krakua, who has like been around, and they're like, listen, man, we need you to cycle through every single sound frequency till he finds the one that awakens the motherfucking BOHROK in the archives beneath Metro Nui. And they bust out of the ground and start fucking up Rakshi and fighting on the side of good, bro. And all of Farshtey's sins are immediately forgiven because the BOHROK get to come in and be the cavalry and save the day, bro. I love the BOHROK. And then the Toa Nuva fly in, they escape from the energy storm, and they clean up the rest of the Rakshi and save Metro Nui and save the universe. And with that, finally, the Brotherhood of Makuta is defeated. Its armies are destroyed, all of its most powerful members are dead, and the Great Spirit wakes once more. And there's this massive festival in the Colosseum on Metro Nui, and Taragaduma gives this speech where he honors Lekon and Motoro and all the other heroes who have given everything to make this moment possible. Light has finally triumphed over darkness, and on this beautiful, victorious note, Bionicle comes to an end.
Psych, bitch, you thought.
Okay, so let's be like actually 100% for real right now. Like not, oh, the video, you know, jokes. Is Bionicle a good story? Not really. No. I mean, there's good things about it. There's some cool world building stuff. There's some witty dialogue. But as an overall story, no, it's not that great. It's transparently merchandise driven. It constantly has to centralize new characters so that they can sell new sets, which means that all of the characters end up being pretty flat. Nobody really has an arc, and there's a ton of people and groups and conflicts that just never get a proper resolution. There's 1,000 little fractal tangents that don't go anywhere. The web serials are a truly atrocious way to tell a story, and at least half the runtime is just MacGuffin hunting and pointless fights. On the spectrum of kids media that is basically just an elevated toy commercial, I'd say it's like maybe like a 7, and on the spectrum of like all media, it's like a 3 or a 4. Now, the reason that I'm saying this is that I want you to understand that yes, I am nostalgic for and arguably a little bit pathetically obsessed with Bionicle, but that does not preclude me from having an objective understanding of its quality. And the reason that I'm saying that is so that you understand how utterly, completely serious I am being when I tell you that what is about to happen is a genuine contender for the single best plot twist in fictional history. And I think it's probable that many of you watching already know about this plot twist, either because you're already Bionicle fans, it was spoiled for you like in the comments at some point, or you know of Bionicle by reputation. Bionicle is that thing that has that twist. But regardless of any of that, I think it's likely that you do not understand the full depth of the genius of this twist, so I am going to lay it out for you in 3 parts. Part 1, the missing piece. So we have just been talking about the final battle of Bionicle, the last chapter, where everyone and everything is participating, even if it doesn't even really make sense. The Toa Nuva, the Toa Mari, the Toa Haga, the Order of Mata Nui, the Dark Hunters, the Brotherhood of Makuta, the Baraki, Vizon, Rudaka, Kitangu, the Viscerak, the Rakshi, the BOHROK. Everyone is participating with one extremely conspicuous exception. And that exception, of course, is Pterodax. You know, Pterodax, Makuta Pterodax, the Makuta of Metro Nui, the Makuta, our Makuta, the main villain of this franchise. Where is Pterodax? Because I'll tell you where Pterodax isn't anywhere you'd think he'd be. He's not in Karda Nui fighting the Toa Nuva. He's not on Metro Nui fighting the Toa Mari. He's not defending the base of the Brotherhood of Makuta. All of this is his thing. This is his war. This is his plan. So where the hell is he? What is he doing? Well, that brings us to part 2, the plan. It's very easy to look at what Makuta does, and I'm just gonna call him Makuta from now on because all the other Makutas are dead and Pterodax is a goofy name. This is Makuta. It's very easy to look at Makuta and say, okay, this guy's motive is that he is evil. He's a bad dude, he likes hurting people, and he wants world domination. And that isn't at all wrong, that is true, but there's also another layer to it. Makuta's primary motive is and always has been jealousy. It's one of the first things we're ever told in all of Bionicle. Makuta believes that he deserves, by virtue of his intellect and his cunning, what Mata Nui was given by birthright for free. Power, authority, worship. So, how's he gonna get it? Well, plan A was the Great Cataclysm. Plunge Mata Nui into slumber, put all the Matoran in spheres that erase their memories, reawaken them as their savior, be worshipped forever. And the thing about that is that plan mostly worked. He did plunge Mata Nui into slumber. He did erase the memories of all the Matoran, but then he failed at the very last hurdle, and the reason he failed is very simple. Toa. See, here's the thing. Toa should not be a threat to somebody like Makuta. He is so much stronger and so much smarter than any Toa or any team of Toa that they shouldn't even be on his radar. And yet, he keeps losing to Toa. And he loses because although there are many different kinds of Toa and elements and personalities, all of them share one singular trait, and that is that they do not give up. The defining feature of all Toa is a willingness to keep fighting and sacrifice anything, even, nay, especially if what they're fighting for is already a completely lost cause. And Makuta's seen this firsthand several times. The Toa Metru, even after Makuta triggered the Great Cataclysm, destroyed their home, put all their friends in comas, they still banded together to defeat him. Then after they got mutated into the Toa Hordika, they still banded together and defeated the Viscerak. Then Vakama was ready to destroy the entire timeline just to stop Makuta from getting his hands on the Mask of Time. And then in later years, Takua put on the Mask of Light and became Takanuva and defeated Makuta even after Makuta had already killed his best friend. Makuta can overpower Toa and he can outsmart Toa, but he can never out-crazy Toa. And because of this, he will never be able to pull off any of his plans. So, you're Makuta, you're not just gonna give up. What do you do about this? Well, you can't win by fighting Toa, but what if you didn't have to fight Toa? What if there was a way to convince Toa that what you want is actually what they want? Because if you could do that, well, not only would their fucking endless tenacity not be a problem anymore, but that would actually work in your favor, because they would be willing to make sacrifices that you would never in a million years be willing to make in service of your goals. So you come up with plan B. Step 1, stall. Spend 1,000 years using Rahi to harass the Matoran on Mata Nui and prevent them from going back to the Matoran universe. Then, when the Toa Mata show up, deploy first the BOHROK and then the Rakshi to slow them down. Appear to be permanently defeated in your battle with Takanuva, just in time for everybody to go back to Metro Nui and find out that Mata Nui's death is imminent. Manipulate the Paraka into taking you to Voya Nui so you can keep an eye on the whole Mask of Life hunt. When it goes down to Mari Nui, go down there yourself and possess the empty shell of the Maxilos robot to intervene directly. Keep the mask out of the hands of the Rocky, but also stall the Toa some more. But more importantly than either of those things, spend a bunch of time with Motoro. Manipulate him. Make him question his worth as a Toa and a hero. Set him up to do the ultimate version of the thing that Toa do. Make the ultimate sacrifice for the ultimate lost cause. Then, when things are down to the wire, let your body be destroyed in order to buy just a little bit more time in which Mata Nui finally dies. At this point, things are out of your control, but it doesn't matter because you can trust the Toa to do what Toa do. Simultaneously, declare war against the entire Matoran universe and send your best lieutenants to Karda Nui. This serves a dual purpose. It ensures that almost everyone in your organization is going to die, leaving you unopposed, and it also makes it appear that you are resisting the reawakening of Mata Nui when in fact you are working to ensure that that happens. And that is the plan. You rely on the endless persistence of Toa to accomplish your goals for you. But that raises the question of, okay, why are these your goals? How does any of this benefit Makuta? Why did he want Mata Nui to die and then come back to life like 5 minutes later? And why is he now okay with Mata Nui reawakening when he was the one that put him to sleep in the first place? What's the point of all of this? Well, that brings us to part 3, Mata Nui. Now, as Bionicle has gone on, the Great Spirit Mata Nui has been referred to more and more frequently as if he has some sort of physical presence or active role in the maintenance of the universe, despite the fact that by all appearances, he doesn't. And this has raised, for me as a kid, and possibly for you now, a lot of questions. Why exactly is the death of Mata Nui such a big deal? Why is that going to cause the death of everybody else? Why did him getting cast into slumber cause the Great Cataclysm? Why did we have to do all this weird stuff to prep for his reawakening? Why did Voyanui have to be dropped back into the Matoran universe? Why does the island of Mata Nui have to be cleaned by the BOHROK? What is up with all the machinery in the Codrex? How is activating that going to wake up Mata Nui? These are all good questions, and I could individually answer them, but instead, I'm gonna give you the answer to a question that you were not asking, but is much more important. Why have we never seen a map of the Matoran universe? Have you noticed that? We've seen lots of individual islands, but even in the book called Bionicle World, they don't ever give us a full map of the whole thing. And that's weird. Like, fantasy books put the map right at the front because it's convenient to be able to understand where stuff is. So why haven't we seen a map? Well, they haven't given us a map because if they did, we would see that the Matoran universe looks like this. The Matoran universe is itself a massive biomechanical entity. The interconnected chambers that fill it, those are organs. The characters that live in it, those are cells. Karda Nui, the core of the universe, that's its engine and its heart. Metra Nui, the capital city of the universe, capital is its brain. And the consciousness inhabiting that brain is called the Great Spirit Mata Nui. Mata Nui and the Matoran universe are one and the same thing. And the thing is that once you get past the sheer fucking insanity of this reveal, you realize that this explains everything. Why would Mata Nui's death cause the death of the universe? Well, that's an easy one. Mata Nui is the universe. His death means the shutdown of all of its systems. Why did Mata Nui falling into slumber cause this massive earthquake? Because he literally fell into slumber. For that matter, why is the Matoran universe at the bottom of the ocean? Because that's where he fell. Why did Voyanui have to be returned to the Matoran universe and the hole in the ceiling patched? Because there was a hole in Mata Nui's stomach and part of his intestines were floating on the surface of the ocean. The machines inside the Codrex that the Toa Nuva had to rev up, that was his engine. And of course everything in Karda Nui burned up when it was activated, because that's what happens when you're inside an engine while it's running. Why did the island of Mata Nui need to be cleared by the BOHROK? Because that island formed above Mata Nui's face, and when Mata Nui awakened, his head needed to pass through it without anything snagging on him and causing damage. This even answers questions that we didn't even know we were asking. Why is Matoran life so depressing? Why is it an endless procession of toil to no clear purpose? Well, what do you think the lives of your cells are like, if not a lifetime of toil in service to nothing but an abstract great spirit? Trenkrom, you remember Trenkrom, the old god of the Matoran universe, the weird fleshy thing that ran the body until Mata Nui was ready to take over himself, at which point it was cut out? That's a fucking umbilical cord, bro. And the most important question of all, why did Makuta want Mata Nui to die and then come back to life and then be reawakened? Because Makuta is not a biomechanical entity, he is living energy in a metal shell, and he can take over any metal shell as long as it has no animating consciousness. And guess what the fucking universe robot is while Mata Nui is dead? And guess whose previous metal shell just happened to get destroyed at the exact same moment that Mata Nui died, leaving Makuta's energy free to travel to the core processor beneath Metro Nui and infect it. Now obviously he couldn't have the robot stay dead because he would just die in its brain, so he had to rely on the Toa to do what they do best and bring Mata Nui back to life. And then even if he's in the brain, if the robot's systems are dormant, he still can't do anything, so he had to rely on the Toa to reawaken the robot. So when the Great Spirit robot awakens, it awakens with Makuta in the driver's seat, now in full control of the universe with absolute power and authority, having taken by virtue of his intellect and his cunning what Mata Nui was given freely by birthright. And with all the other Makutas that might be able to do the same thing now dead, the only threat left to him is the Great Spirit himself, whose consciousness he binds to the Mask of Life before ejecting it from the Matoran universe into space. And that is where Bionicle 2008 ends. And here's the thing. Bionicle continues after this, right? There's another about a year and a half of content, and I'm gonna make a video about that. You should subscribe to the channel so you're notified when I drop it, because the quality declines precipitously, and I'm gonna get really mad, and it'll probably be pretty funny. But like this is Bionicle. Like, this is the point. Because no, Bionicle's not a good story. It's kind of a dumb story, but it wasn't ever about the story. It was about the world and the mystery and setting up all these questions and leaving all these clues so that they could answer all of it in one beautiful, clean stroke. Because this moment, this twist, it's perfect. In a single line, with a single piece of information, we recontextualize everything we know about the entire universe. And the fact that that one piece of information is so fucking crazy, the fact that it's God is the universe and all the characters live inside him, that just makes it even better, because who the fuck would ever guess that? That's insane. But once you learn that, it seems like it's obvious. It seems like, of course that's what it was. It was always clearly that. It's perfect. It's perfect. When I said in my first video that it's tragic that Bionicle is not remembered because it deserves to be remembered, I wasn't talking about like the fights with the Morbuzak. I wasn't talking about the Mask of Time. I wasn't talking about the Bionicle with tits. I was talking about this. This is the part that deserves to be remembered by our general cultural consciousness. This is the part that I dearly hope one day goes on to inspire somebody to write a story that's better than Bionicle with a twist of this caliber. I don't think it's happened yet, but like, you could be the one that goes and writes a story that learns from the lessons of Bionicle. You do it. And if it's actually good, I'll make 7 hours of video about your stupid thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to end this video. This is Bionicle. This is what it was all for. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. But there is one chapter left. So I will see you all in part 6, Beyond the Matoran Universe, where we learn, frankly, just too much shit. Just an upsetting amount of stuff. And I, for one, am very excited to talk about the utter downfall of Bionicle. See you next time.